And ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to this very exciting Friday, the 26th of August in 2022. Hey, thank God it's Friday and looking forward to a great weekend. Well, right now the temperature in Brisbane, 14 degrees and sunny. It's a beautiful day out there today. So what do we have for you to lined up today is the daily news updates, reports, and then we have our daily India report, and we'll be finishing off with the functions and events, what you can look forward to in the weekend. And it's just been one crazy week this week. There's so many functions and events. How does a person attend or like to attend all of them, because they all happen at the same time? Like last night there was the indoors community dinner, business dinner. Then we had the multicultural awards. Then we had the launch of the Latin House. And many others. These are the few ones that I just know about. There's so many others that happen. And same thing about tonight, tomorrow. We'll find out about all of those. But first of all, let's get into the news segment for today and see what do we have in it. Number one, that robot debt that still comes and haunts us.
This was a moment Labor had long promised, a royal commission into a now notorious debt recovery scheme.
So that we can ensure that it can never, ever happen again.
Please be seated.
Catherine Holmes, a former Queensland Supreme Court Chief Justice, will investigate the automated Centrelink program known as RoboDebt, in a bid to answer why it started and why warnings about it were ignored.
The last government gave us robo-victims. The last government gave us robo-denial. Today, Labor will give the victims some robo-justice.
Over 4 years, more than 400,000 welfare recipients were unlawfully accused of being overpaid benefits. The Commonwealth clawed back $750 million in alleged debts. Felicity de Somerville was at the doctor's with her daughter when she discovered more than $11,000 had been taken from her account.
The best way I can define this feeling is I was so depressed I thought she would be better off with me dead.
The Morrison government agreed to a $1.8 billion settlement with those caught up in the program, but the man who led the class action lawsuit says public servants and politicians who knew of problems should be pursued.
RoboDebt raises a very real question. What do we do when it's our own government that is engaging in potentially criminal activity?
The Coalition abandoned the scheme in 2019 and later apologised for any hurt or harm caused, but claims this inquiry is a witch hunt by the new Prime Minister.
He should be concentrating more on how he can help families and less on how he can get square with Scott Morrison.
Some Centrelink recipients say that RoboDebt made them out to be criminals or welfare cheats and damaged their mental health. And they hope that this Royal Commission will not only tell their stories, but also restore public trust in a social security system that our nation's most vulnerable rely on. James Glenday, ABC News, Canberra.
There you go. It still comes up and haunts us today. And as was said that, the current government should get on with the job of getting things back on track rather than trying to get square with Scott Morrison. So, but given the opportunity, why would anyone miss that? So, Sydney West is touted as untapped Weka resource. Let's find out from this report.
Quality jobs, more training and improved wages. Attendees at the summit are challenging the federal government to deliver on all three.
We need Canberra to hear from Western Sydney. This is a jobs and skills summit and we have a problem on both.
The unemployment rate in some pockets of Western Sydney is up around 15 to 20%. That's significantly higher than the 3.4% national average.
There is discrimination against many migrants when they're applying for jobs. We can't afford to do that at the best of times. We can't afford to do that now.
The workforce here is also younger than average. Businesses want a tailored solution.
They want to be able to see that when they go into a workplace, they're supported, they're given the right wraparound experience in terms of certification, mentoring, placed in a traineeship where they get an income while they're experiencing that work.
In 2020, Greater Western Sydney contributed over $150 billion to Australia's GDP. This makes the high unemployment rate here a national concern. And business leaders are now saying this needs to be a priority at next week's National Jobs Summit. The ACTU has just announced it will go to the summit with a push for sector-wide collective bargaining, something government MPs say they're open to.
We have seen far too little wages growth over the last 10 years, and it's no secret to anybody that the bargaining system is broken if it's delivering 10 years of almost zero real wages growth.
While thousands struggle to find jobs, 1/3 of businesses are still reporting problems finding suitable staff. It's hoped these twin summits can find the solutions and consensus needed to bridge the gap. Nabil Nashar, ABC News, Sydney.
The gap is what really needs to be done. Right now, let's go to Adelaide, where a man is to stay behind bars after a major bomb raid.
A suburban street turned crime scene. The police bomb squad yesterday raiding a home in Direk in Adelaide's north.
I saw the bomb squad come in as well, and guys with the hazard suits.
I think everybody was in shock.
Officers in hazmat suits comb the property on Dacillas Drive, inside allegedly finding instructions, chemicals and equipment capable of being used to manufacture explosives. Substances potentially so dangerous, neighbours had to be evacuated.
10 o'clock yesterday morning till about 9 o'clock last night. We weren't allowed home.
Honestly, I was shocked. I was a little bit scared. I was thinking that there was a murder or something like that.
Police have charged 60-year-old Dean Anthony Edwards, who faced the Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. Prosecutors asked to be given until April next year to examine the large amount of chemicals allegedly found, which they say so far includes at least one explosive substance. But the magistrate questioned the lengthy delay, instead calling on the matter to return in December. Mr Edwards did not apply for bail. Evelyn Manfield, ABC News, Adelaide.
Armed and wanted, fugitive Rodney Clavell brought the city to a standstill in 2014 when he took hostages at a King William Street brothel. After 13 hours, he took his own life, ending the dramatic siege. Today, the Court of Criminal Appeal heard Clavell provided detectives investigating the 2009 murder of drug dealer Alan Ames with information implicating trafficker Peter Laggaway. It was the victim's nephew, Danny Ames, who was convicted of the murder. After more than a decade in jail, the 49-year-old is appealing his conviction on the grounds Laggaway confessed to the killing on his deathbed in 2016. The court heard Clavell inform Detective Rod Huppatz that Laggaway was in possession of Alan Ames's meth after the murder and disposed of the murder weapon. But that information was never disclosed to Ames ahead of his trial. Ames's lawyer today agreed Laggaway was not captured on CCTV or triggered the sensor lights at the cabin workshop, but submitted that if Laggaway went there to commit a robbery, he may not have walked down the front driveway.
It's true there's no evidence linking Laggaway to the murder, but there's no evidence at the scene linking my client to the murder. The police were so focused on investigating Ames, they failed to investigate Laggaway's lies.
Prosecutors urged the court to dismiss the appeal, saying Laggaway's confession was unreliable. The court has reserved its decision. Megan Dillon, ABC News, Adelaide.
And that that news coming out of Adelaide. Well, right now let's go to Blacktown, where Blacktown Hospital is facing intense scrutiny after the death of a woman.
The death of a beloved daughter is the latest example of a health system under strain. Dua Ali died in February, aged 21, as Omicron crunched the health system.
My family, they were all relying on the system and on the doctors.
As revealed by the ABC, Dua died 2 days after being diagnosed with food poisoning at the Blacktown Hospital Emergency Department. Her death is now under investigation, and the Shadow Health Minister has written to the Healthcare Complaints Commission about her case. Blacktown Hospital serves one of the most diverse and rapidly growing communities in the country, and it's been under strain for some time. A 2020 report into the maternity ward triggered after the deaths of 4 newborns concluded it was understaffed, and the hospital committed to hiring 28 extra midwives.
Well, it's great to have a $700 million shiny new hospital, but when you go into the hospital, you want to be treated. We need the doctors, the nurses and the support staff.
It's now been revealed 21 emergency nurses have left the service since the end of last year. In a statement, the local health district said 10,000 staff would be hired across New South Wales over the next 4 years. In the first quarter of the year, 14,500 people went to Blacktown Hospital Emergency. That's slightly more than the Prince of Wales, one of the top-tier hospitals serving Sydney's southeast.
Blacktown City is approaching the size of Tasmania in the next 10 years, and we have a second-tier hospital in size.
And in a sign that strain is being felt beyond Blacktown, nurses are set to strike across the state next week. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News, Sydney.
And the industrial action, in every field, we have seen a lot happening in the health sector, in the transport sector as well. People are not getting the standards that they need or that they would like in their working environments. Well, right now let's move on and go to Sydney once again, where Eastern Freeway truck driver has a sentence reduced.
From a convicted killer to a key asset. Just over a year after being sentenced over the deaths of 4 police officers on the Eastern Freeway, Mahinder Singh has convinced Victoria's highest court to slash his sentence by turning prosecution witness against his old boss, who's charged with manslaughter. Do you understand, Mr. Singh, that you might be called upon numerous times by the prosecution to give evidence in this matter? Yes, I'll come as many times as I have to. But for families of the fallen officers, it's a hollow gesture.
It completely deflects and takes focus off the actual incident itself and that he's responsible for.
Well, this man may be afforded additional days of freedom, but not a single day can be added to the lives of our 4 fallen members.
In April 2020, police officers Joshua Presney, Kevin King, Lynette Taylor and Glenn Humphris were killed when Singh veered into an emergency lane. Singh was jailed for 22 years but launched an appeal, arguing that his offer to help police went ignored until 9 days after he was sentenced. Today, the Court of Appeal agreed and wiped 3.5 years off his sentence because the offer was not accepted prior to Mr. Singh's sentence. He was deprived of the opportunity of receiving moderation. Trucking boss Simeona Teteru is fighting allegations that he allowed Singh to drive in his drugged and sleep-deprived state.
We shouldn't be going through this nightmare. We shouldn't be having to, see his photos on walls. I should be in the police force with him, celebrating our careers together.
Danny Tran, ABC News, Melbourne.
Well, there we go. Justice must be done, as it's saying. So, that nurse who tried, 7-year-old, doing 3 jobs at one night, that she died.
Jacqueline Taylor was the first staff member who saw Aishwarya Ashwath after she was rushed to PCH by her parents in April last year. She believed the 7-year-old was suffering gastro and gave her a triage score of 4, one of the lowest ratings, something she said she still considered appropriate. Ms Taylor said the layout of the area had meant she couldn't do a hands-on assessment, something she said would have been optimal. But she also testified time constraints were an issue, telling the hearing the whole department was running under a lot of pressure, time pressure, exhaustion and long periods of fatigue where we'd requested more resources. Ms Taylor agreed under questioning that at the time she was effectively doing the job of 3 people. And while she said that there had since been changes, including more staff, she still didn't believe the hospital was up to the ideal standard yet. CCTV footage of the family arriving at the hospital was played to the inquest. It doesn't have any audio, but it shows Aishwarya being carried in by her father. The family spends about 3 minutes at the triage desk before they're escorted through to a waiting area. As the family waited there for another hour and a half, Aishwarya's condition continued to deteriorate, despite her parents' repeated pleas for help. At one point, she was examined briefly by Dr Tony Teo, who told the inquest that evening was busier than usual and several people had called in sick. He said he was only told Aishwarya had a problem with her eyes and he didn't consider her situation urgent or that she needed a more thorough examination. Under questioning from the coroner, Dr Teo accepted that his brief time with Aishwarya and her family was one of many missed opportunities that could perhaps have saved her life that night. Joanna Manar, ABC News.
Very, very sad indeed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. India's largest private hospital opens in Faridabad city adjacent to Indian capital of New Delhi. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on August 24th inaugurated the private hospital that has started with 500 beds and will be scaled over phases to become a 2,600-bed hospital in 5 years. It is the largest hospital in India equipped with cutting-edge technology, including a centralized, fully automated laboratory. Haryana State Governor Bandaru Dattatreya and Chief Minister of Haryana State Manohar Lal Khattar were also present at the event. Speaking on the occasion, Prime Minister Modi said, India is a country where healthcare and spirituality are closely linked. Spirituality helps healing, he said. The state-of-the-art Amrita Hospital, built on a sprawling 130-acre campus with sustainability in mind, has a dedicated 7-story research block and has been constructed over a period of 6 years. Once fully operational, the hospital, with 81 specialities, is built to be the largest private hospital in Delhi NCR and the country. Nitish Kumar, Chief Minister of the Indian state of Bihar, and the Grand Alliance proved their majority on the floor of the Bihar Legislative Assembly on August 24th. Bihar State Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and his Mahagathbandhan with the Rashtriya Janata Dal, the Congress and other secular parties proved their majority on the floor of the Bihar Legislative Assembly on August 24th. The new Grand Alliance won the motion of confidence in the 243-member assembly by voice vote amid a walkout by opposition BJP. Kumar had maneuvered his way out of the Bharatiya Janata Party-led NDA coalition 2 weeks ago and revived his old partnership with Lalu Prasad Yadav's RJD. After breaking with the NDA on 9th August, Kumar was sworn in as Bihar Chief Minister for a record 8th time the next day, while Lalu's son Tejasvi Yadav became his deputy. The House session for the floor test began with BJP MLA and Speaker Vijay Kumar Sinha stepping down as a no-confidence motion was moved against him soon after the Mahagathbandhan came to power. India is all set to send across its 12th consignment of medicines and humanitarian aid to Ukraine in the ongoing conflict with Russia. This follows a special request from the Ukrainian side to help out in the conflict. India on August 24th announced that it is ready to dispatch its 12th consignment of humanitarian aid to Ukraine, consisting of 26 types of medicines of the special request from Ukraine. Addressing a United Nations Security Council meeting, the country's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, said that humanitarian aid included hemostatic bandages, which are meant to stem the bleeding of deep wounds among children and adults. This was the specific request from Ukraine. Kamboj said that India's approach is to promote dialogue and diplomacy to end the conflict and mitigate the economic challenges emerging from the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. India is expanding its outreach to South American nations. The Indian External Affairs Minister has toured Brazil and Paraguay and discussed expanding trade and investment besides cooperation in consular affairs. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is on his first ever visit to South America. He co-chaired the 8th India-Brazil Joint Commission meeting on August 24th with his Brazilian counterpart Carlos Franca and had comprehensive discussions concerning trade, investments and other consular domains. Jaishankar also signed agreements in broadcasting and taxation with the Brazilian foreign minister and exchanged views on BRICS, IPSA, UN, G20 and the Ukraine conflict. The External Affairs Minister also appreciated the government of Brazil for releasing a commemorative stamp marking the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. Jaishankar is on an official visit to Brazil, Paraguay and Argentina from August 22nd to 27th. During his visit, in addition to bilateral engagements with his counterparts, the External Affairs Minister will call on the top leadership in all three countries. Jaishankar concluded his first ever official visit to Paraguay on August 22nd, where he inaugurated the newly opened Indian embassy in the capital city. This was the first ever visit of the Indian Foreign Minister to the Republic of Paraguay, which has taken place as the two countries completed the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations. India has sought the cooperation of all Shanghai Cooperation Organization countries for collective efforts to end cross-border terrorism. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has asked SCO member states to unitedly fight against terrorism and eliminate the menace in all its forms. Addressing the SCO Defence Ministers meeting at Tashkent, Uzbekistan on August 24, 2022, the minister asserted that terrorism in any form, including cross-border terrorism, committed by anyone and for whatever purpose is a crime against humanity. He said, quote, "Terrorism is one of the most serious challenges to global peace and security. India reiterates its resolve to fight all forms of terrorism and make the region peaceful, secure and stable. We seek to develop joint institutional capabilities with the SCO member states, which while respecting the sensitivities of each country create the spirit of cooperation among individuals, societies and nations." End quote. In this context, the Indian Defence Minister proposed to host a workshop in India in 2023 on the theme Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief, Risk Mitigation and Disaster Resilient Infrastructure for the Defence Ministries of SCO member states. He also suggested an annual seminar on topic of interest among the defence think tanks of SCO countries. Former Indian cricketer VVS Lakshman has now been named as the interim head coach for the India team in the upcoming Asia Cup 2022. VVS Lakshman will be the lead coach as Rahul Dravid is not recovered after testing COVID positive. In a press release, BCCI informed that Lakshman has been given the charge and Dravid will take over only after his test results come out negative. This is not the first time Lakshman has been given the charge. Earlier, he was named head coach for the Ireland-bound Indian side, which was captained by Hardik Pandya, where the team clean swept the hosts 2-0 in a two-match T20I series. Moreover, he then stayed with the team as the test side took on England in the lone test match under the coaching of Rahul Dravid. Lakshman left England after the first T20I, which India won under a new captain in Rohit Sharma. World number 18 shuttler, Indian badminton player HS Pranoy has again created a major stir in the ongoing BWF Championships after he defeated Japan's Kento Momota in the men's singles round of 32 matches. World number 18 India's HS Pranoy created a major stir in the ongoing BWF World Championships as he defeated Japan's Kento Momota in the men's singles round of 32 matches on August 24th. It was Pranoy's first win over Momota in 8 matches. With the win, Pranoy sails into the pre-quarter final where he will be facing compatriot Lakshya Sen. Pranoy took less than an hour to register the win over the two-time world champion. Pranoy has a knack for defeating big players. Previously, he defeated Olympic gold medalist Lin Dan, Taufik Hidayat, Chen Long and Victor Axelsen. The Indian also has recorded a win over Olympic silver medalist Lee Chong-wai. Now, Pranoy has added Momota to the long list of his scalps. Bollywood stars Hrithik Roshan and Saif Ali Khan are coming together after almost 2 decades for the film Vikram Vedha. The film is a remake of the Southern Indian film starring Madhavan and Vijay Sethupathi. The last outing together of the two top-notch Bollywood stars was Na Tum Jano Na Hum. This time, Hrithik and Saif will for the official remake of Vikram Vedha, a remake of the South Indian film starring Madhavan and Vijay Sethupathi. The remake is directed by Pushkar and Gayatri. A 1 minute and 46 seconds long teaser shows intense and gripping background music that further pulsates the already fueled narrative. Hrithik reprises the role of Vijay Sethupathi and Saif dons the role essayed by R. Madhavan. This isn't the battle between good and evil but two evils. Both the characters possess shades of grey and one can be reminded of Anurag Kashyap's Raman Raghav 2.0 with both the cop and criminal hiding and revealing their inner demons. This is Hrithik's first outing after the immensely successful 2019 with the dual successes of War and Super 30. Saif, who had the fortune of his life with titles like Omkara and Tanhaji the Unsung Warrior, now goes on the other side of the law, the supposed good side. The film is all set to be released on September 30th. That's all in today's bulletin.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in that segment. But right now, let's go and take a look at functions and events taking place this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your company today. Well, right now we will be saying goodbye until tomorrow when we bring to you the weekend edition. So right now in Brisbane, 15 degrees and sunny and remaining that way. We might get up to 22 later in the day. It's been wonderful having your company as usual. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.